Hi, I'm Billy Mitchell with FedScoop TV. Today I'm here with Mark Day, Deputy Assistant Commissioner for the Integrated Technology Services at GSA. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Great to hear. So let's just start off by, maybe you could tell me about your first job in government and what you're working on today.
Well, first job in government. I was running a local community action agency's Meals on Wheels program. We covered 8 counties, and our job was to organize volunteers to go out and serve the public, elderly, and help them get at least one good meal a day. And so organizing volunteers and organizing the vendors and recruiting the right people who needed the help is a very interesting introduction to government service.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it's quite a bit different than what you do today.
A little bit.
And speaking of different, what else is different about the government workplace today when you compared to you starting out?
Well, I think there's a number of differences today. Today there's much more scrutiny of the government workforce. There is a level of skepticism about the government workforce that did not exist then. There is, I think at some level, public service is a bit more of a question in the minds of people. Is it in fact government service? Is it public service? And so the atmosphere in which we work has changed, the scrutiny has changed, and the level of transparency has changed. Not all to the bad. That scrutiny and that transparency is probably good in many cases. But maybe some questions about the service level has made it difficult to recruit people.
What would you say have been the keys to success in your government career?
Well, to the degree of whatever success I've had, I would have to say it's a couple things. One, it's agility. You really have to be willing to hear other opinions than your own. You have to be willing to change with the realities that are around you. And if you're unable to do that, government service will be very frustrating. We live in a democracy. It is the nature that there will be change and that new opinions will emerge and that we have to be responsive to those new opinions. So that's a very big picture answer. Smaller picture answer is, do you have good judgment? Do you know when to take a risk and when not to? Do you do your homework? Do you know the facts before you leap? Do you in fact listen to other people and synthesize the understanding of the community about an issue? And then deliver. You've got to deliver at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how good you are at thinking all of it through. It doesn't matter how good you are at talking to people. If you can't deliver, you will not succeed in government. So communication, judgment, delivery.
Gotcha. Entering the government as a young professional can be a complex and exhausting, maybe overwhelming experience. What do you think is the best way for a young person entering the government to find their place?
Well, one, be willing to be flexible. Half the game is getting in. Once you're in, be flexible. Don't assume you've got to stay right where you are. My key to success in most cases was really very simple. Find some mentors. Find some people who are a little further along in their career and let them help you. Talk to them. Understand their perspective. Listen to how they make decisions. Observe. Find a community of like-minded people who aren't in your work group so that you can talk about things a little more freely. Mm-hmm. Sometimes just talking to your boss and just talking to your coworkers doesn't allow you to see a broader perspective. I think if you can broaden your perspective and do a number of different things early, it really gives you the ability to problem solve and to communicate with different people. And as you go up the chain of command, you're going to work with more and more different people who don't work in your profession. And your ability to talk to people outside your profession, your ability to problem solve across multiple professions with others is really critical. And you get that from that starting spot where you've been willing to look, learn, listen to people who have more experience, and then bring your ideas. But always learn how to pitch your ideas in terms of what their interests are.
Absolutely. You spoke of mentors, but are there any other resources you would recommend for someone to further their career?
There's lots of resources to help your career. There is the Federal Executive Institute. There are lots of training programs in government. Avail yourself of these. Learn as much as you can. Someone wrote a book about the decades of life, and one of the things they said was, in your 20s, experiment with lots of different roles and responsibilities and learn what you like. Not everybody wants to be a manager. Not everybody wants to be an analyst. Figure out what you really like as a role. And then in your 30s, learn everything you possibly can about the thing you've selected. You do those two things, your 40s and 50s are a nice parallel track, a nice track that ends the trend you've created in your 20s and 30s.
Makes sense. And lastly, government's often criticized as lacking innovation, very bureaucratic, maybe even antiquated. Knowing that, would you encourage young people to enter and serve in a government job?
Yeah, I think that's it's a half-truth that government is that way. There is enormous innovation in government. The internet was not, contrary to belief, invented in Silicon Valley. It was invented via a university grant that came out of the Department of Defense, who saw the need for a communications network that was a mesh-type network. That's where the internet came from. Tremendous things come out of government innovation. But when the government makes a decision, it's affecting 300 million people. Making a bad decision for 300 million people is something you need to be careful about. And so government is slower to adopt things on a large scale, but it has a lot of innovation. You will get to do a lot more things in the government early than you'll ever get to do in the private sector. Because in the private sector, my experience, having been there, you need to be a real specialist at the thing you do, and you don't get to do a lot of different things early. In government, if you're good and you show real judgment, you get to do lots of different things. You get thrown into assignments where my first assignment for the federal government, I called somebody from my old job and said, "Can I come back? Oh my God, they want me to do what?" And it turned out to be the best assignment I had for the first 2 years. You gotta be willing to innovate. You can.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, I appreciate you sitting in with us and for your time.
Great.
I'm Billy Mitchell. Thanks for watching.